If we don't plan, we're undoubtedly going to waste resources. If we're well planned, we're thinking ahead about what needs to be done first, and we can deploy resources appropriately, much more efficiently and effectively. It also provides clarity for the people doing the work so that they know what they need to do in what order, and it allows us to properly plan the future.
When I'm thinking about planning and organising resources, one of the first things that always comes into my head is that resources are finite and limited. When I look at the organising resources, I say to myself, I can't do everything that would be vaguely good to do. I have to focus on the things that are going to create the most value in the area that I'm working on. If you don't have that focus, if you don't know what the resources you have to hand are, and if you don't know how to organise them, if you haven't been through some kind of planning process, the chances are that you've got people in your team working on stuff that's peripheral to your core purpose, or things that aren't going to add as much value, or things that aren't going to get momentum. So the planning, the really understanding what you've got to hand and how to use it is really about resource scarcity and how to get the best bang for your buck from what you've got to hand. Nobody else knows your team like you know your team. Nobody else knows the strengths and the weaknesses of the people in it. Nobody knows where the training's at, where the capabilities are at. So it's incredibly important for all people managers to be involved in that allocation of resources, the planning of the work, the translation of the bigger plans into the plan for the team. Incredibly important for that to be happening at all levels of the organisation, because if you're waiting for someone else to do it, if you're waiting for the CEO to think about your team and how to organise it, or you think HR should be thinking about succession planning and other kinds of ways of organising work, if you think it's somebody else's job and you're just waiting for someone to tell you what to do, well then you're not managing your team in the way that you need to. You're the person that's the expert. You're the person that needs to make sure that your resources are organised in the best way possible to get the outcomes that your team is there to achieve.
It's very typical in my experience in public service to get towards the end of a financial year and find there is suddenly some money available, and if you haven't planned ahead, then you're not able to use that opportunity to use that funding or whatever it might be. In this case, we had some funding that came our way, and we wanted to deploy a drones program. If we weren't able to do the resource planning around that wouldn't have happened. We'd have simply let the money wash down the river. The people involved are very grateful that we were able to bring in the resources we needed at the time to do the work that we've wanted to do but didn't have the opportunity to do.
I'm an engineer by training. My early career was more in the technology side of things, but there was a point at which I moved into a program delivery role. It was my first program delivery role. At that point, it was incredibly important that I understand the resources I had available to me, understand the people, because as it turned out, we didn't have the right mix of people working on the right programs. There were areas where we were struggling to meet targets. We're having other areas where we were overachieving on targets. But when I looked at what we were doing overall, I realized we had some really talented people that could have turned around the areas that weren't doing so well, but decisions weren't being made to reallocate the resources. We're able to reallocate resources, make sure that everything was being delivered at the level that it needed to be, but also continuing to do the good stuff. I mean, it's great to deliver more than what's expected from you. We wanted to keep that going. But by doing that, we're able to bring everything up to a level where at the very least delivering what we needed to deliver, because we had the right people working in the right areas with the right attitude that helped turn underperforming areas around. I think it's incredibly important to take a more active role in shaping the resources that you have, in part because you could have a lot of people working very hard but not actually achieving the outcomes that you need them to achieve. I think it's a mistake to confuse busyness with achievement. I think it's incredibly important to make sure that you've you are aligned to get the best outcome for the people of New South Wales, the optimal outcome. And that means doing things efficiently, yes, but also means doing things effectively, which means having the resources allocated to the right thing. Understanding what systems they need, what tools they need, what training they need, understanding how your recruitment processes, how your performance management processes contribute to all that is incredibly important. Again, if you take your eye off the ball in terms of how you're allocating resources and a sense builds in that there's an unfairness in how work is being allocated, that can have a really detrimental impact on culture and therefore a detrimental impact on the productivity of your team as well. So it is incredibly important to be focused on those things, to not just let things drift, to not confuse busyness with productivity, and to make sure that you are, as much as you possibly can, delivering on the right things for the people of New South Wales and doing it as efficiently as you can.
As a people leader, it's really important to build that relationship with your team. One of the advantages of doing so is that you get to know the challenges that your individuals face, things like work-life balance. Do they work under pressure better with tight timeframes? Or they're a planner and a thinker and like to plan out their work? Knowing these things and getting to know your individuals closely enables you to help with your work allocation, helps you with your role clarity, your division and distribution of work amongst the team. It helps you play to the strengths of your individuals and really to achieve the overall outcomes for the team itself. We know when people get the balance right, they are far more productive, have less absences from the workplace, and the outcomes from the business are far better in the long run.
The role of a manager is to clear the path for staff. So if we're not looking at what the potential risks might be and mitigating for those, we're going to face those problems head on, and that's not going to be helpful to anyone. It slows things down. People get frustrated and upset and confused. So thinking about what the risks and strategies for either eliminating or mitigating for those is a way that managers can demonstrate that they really are here to facilitate the good work that their staff can do.
We'll often have a risk management approach to a major program of work where we might have a couple of hours set aside for a workshop where we really brainstorm what could go wrong, what are the challenges, risks or issues that we might encounter. And that enables us to plan contingencies essentially for what might go wrong down the track and develop strategies for how we'll respond to those as they arise. It's being able to be fairly agile and think on your feet and provide good governance and decision making around how do you respond when those issues do arise. Having that close relationship again with your individuals and your people enables you to know what is a priority and when to respond, and then build it into your implementation phase so that when they do arise, you can respond in a timely fashion with minimal disruption to the project overall.